could you share, because you brought it up about this imposter syndrome, which is a real thing, by the way. I mean, I know of very, very successful people out there who still talk about it, right? And so what for you, what do you do, or how do you handle this when it pops up, when that voice pops up for you?
I think I do two things, and this has come with practice. This is not something that just happens. Like, I have to be very intentional about this. One is realize that nobody knows everything. And what I mean by that is I don't know how to do certain things that other people can do. Create a really impressive deal model. I'm not the modeling guy. But I remind myself I can bring other things to the table that others maybe can't do. Because I was a lawyer and did some of the most complex negotiations here. That's my strength. And I remind myself that while I can't do A, B, and C, I can do D, E, and F. And so there's an element there that it's okay not to know everything. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is I'm really honest about it. I'm not trying to fake it that I'm going to go take all these classes and I'm going to be as good at modeling as the banker who's been doing it for 10 years. Yeah. Or the consultant who's been building decks and learning how to synthesize information for 10 years. So I think for a while I tried to be but don't worry, I can learn that, or I'll get there. It's not that I'm being lazy and not trying to do that, but it's just admitting that, hey, this is what I'm good at. Let me plug in there. And I now have a team who are good at the things that I'm not good at. So it's just it's not hiding from the fact that we all have our strengths and weaknesses. That took time. That's not an easy thing to admit. Yes. And it's okay. But as I'm now lucky enough to be in a position where I can build a team, I can do so thoughtfully. So that as a team, we're very robust and powerful.
I see.
That's how I've approached it.
Yeah. So you tapped other subject matter experts to come in and work together. And the truth is, a lot of the stuff that you're doing, the deals you're working on, are complex anyway. So it's not a solo effort. It's a few people coming together to push things forward.
Yeah, and I know in startups, things can maybe you have to be a little bit more solo depending on how many resources you have. At companies of this size, you're never doing anything on your own. And if you are, you're doing it wrong, right? It's just not possible. So it's that reality that it's okay to have redundancies or help, because that's just how things get done. And I grew up playing sports, so I think about the sports analogy a lot, where I think baseball is a pretty universal global sport. You don't expect the pitcher to play second base or shortstop. But if you have everyone playing the position they're good at, well, now the team is performing very well. You start to mix and match everybody. I guess some teams can be set up that way. But many teams can't, and you hire intentionally, and I've tried to do that over time. My former bosses have done the same. And the team now is kind of working at scale, and that's, I think, a huge value add.
Yeah, that's great. So leaning into your strengths, or also having the team lean into their respective strengths.
Yeah, that, and just knowing what your gaps are so that you can fill them with other people, but also then ask the question so that as a as manager, I can plug in and at least know enough to not be completely ignorant. So there's a little bit of playing to your strengths and developing the weaknesses to some extent.
Yeah. Okay, great. And would you be open enough to share a specific tough moment or a setback as you were making your bold career change, or in any of those changes, and how you pushed through on that moment?
Yeah, I am happy to share. I think back often to the first few months maybe the first 6 months when I left legal and went into business development. And I think there was an element of, I don't want to use the word boredom, but I was looking for a new challenge at the end of my legal time. And so then I got into BD and I was really excited. And then I think 6 months in, it probably came time for what Google used to call perf.
Yeah, performance review.
Your self-assessment, and then your manager's assessment of what you've done. Are you adding value? Or are you driving impact? All these things. And I remember saying I don't know what I have to show for my work the last 6 months. And it's not that I wasn't working, but it was a setback for me mentally, because unlike my time as a lawyer, I didn't have a lot to show for 6 months of pitching deals, of talking to partners. And I remember going into this meeting being like, almost feeling like I had to apologize for not having delivered a deal or a signature. And my boss was amazing. He was like, hey man, it's okay. This is the job. And Leah, you know this because it was the same with you. We'll plant 20 seeds and 1 or 2 of them might grow, but that's the job. So if in the first 6 months, some of those seeds don't grow, that's okay. You need to think through this as like a stepwise function. And that was so different for me compared to when I was a lawyer, because as a lawyer, you're in client services.
Yeah.
I have people like you multiplied by 10 or 20 different people I work with coming to me on a near daily basis being like, we need to turn this red line. We need to resolve this issue. We need to put this contract through the process for signature. There was always a laundry list of things to do. And some of them, right, like you know this, some of them getting a signature is a big deal. Others of just answering an email of like, hey, we have this dispute on how to interpret this clause or this sentence. You can send an email and feel like, yeah, I accomplished that. And so I didn't realize at the time, but every day or certainly every week, there were things to be like, did that. And I think it's different in BD. Or it might take 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to get the deal done. And so it was a mental setback to feel like I was useless. And it took a lot of reassuring that like, no, you're doing the right thing. Different job, we were evaluated differently. But that was a huge struggle for me to think that I was not doing my job and I was hard.
And so besides you had a very supportive manager, right, who took you through that process. Was there anything else that helped you to overcome that?
Yeah, I think it was a network of people like you and other people in the role who I felt comfortable being like, hey, how do you view success? How do I show impact? And it was in some ways displaying your deliverables or your little wins along the way differently. Again, because you'll plant the 20 seeds, but like, take credit in the fact that you planted them. You pitched 20 partners. And on 10 of them, you got to this set of discussions. And on 5 of them, you got to a term sheet. And on 2 of them, you know what I mean? It was like learning from seasoned people how to identify the wins. That was huge. And then I think just having a supportive management chain who understood that we're in it for the long haul, like that made a big difference. Not just me, but a lot of us reassuring us that it's okay, that things take time. And then honestly, Leah, like there was a little bit of just self-work, like reading some books on strategy, on negotiations. Because a lot of my skills were transferable, but like not all. So there was some, I think, getting over the hurdles on your own, like figuring out what you need to do to get the answers that you may need.
Yeah. Amazing. And no, it's so important, especially when you're making these types of transitions, the self-awareness and insight part helps a lot. Like if that's a really developed muscle for yourself, I think it just makes that experience and journey easier.
Yeah. And I know you're not asking me a question now, but I have this story that I think about a lot. A friend of mine is very good at her job, but she'll tell you, she didn't go to the best schools or this or that, but she keeps just rising through the ranks. And one of her superpowers is that she's vulnerable. She'll speak up when she doesn't know something or be like, you know what? Where other people may be afraid to say that because, I look bad. She'll just say, not my area of expertise. I need help on this. Or I don't know the first thing. Can we find somebody who does? And I think by being vulnerable, it opens all of us up to stronger relationships with people where you then can ask for help and not feel like, that guy's going to think I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
But there's an ego you have to sort of get over before you're willing to do that. I'm not perfect on that by any means. I have to force myself to be like, it's okay to show weakness. Because I think the expectation is, you're supposed to be perfect. And I think when you humanize that, it goes a long way.
Yeah, certainly I think in the workplace or, actually sometimes in life too, that we're not comfortable to show these moments where we're not looking our best or where we have to admit, right, that actually we don't know. And so much that needs to happen, self and also the people around us for that kind of ecosystem to support. that moment to happen?